Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do a little watercolor landscape, and I am trying out this new set of Altenew watercolors. And I've actually done a few different paintings with these, and I just wanted to, I'm just kind of playing with them, make sure that I've got a good feeling for how they behave before I do my review. I like to get a few things under my belt to begin with. A little bit of water there. I'm using a color called Crystal Water, which I would actually call more of like it's kind of like a phthalo blue, but a little bit softer of a phthalo blue. And I'm actually going to grab a little bit of this Prussian blue, which they call Starry Night. And I'm going to start with those two colors. I think I want to wet the background before I get too far in, so I'm going to grab a brush. I did tape down the edges of my paper here, my sketchbook. This is a Stillman and Byrne Beta Series mixed media sketchbook. It's one of my favorites. I also like the new Arteza ones, but I got this one first, and I found the paper on both of those books to be very similar. So just good to know if you're looking for either one of those. They're fairly interchangeable. They're very similar. So what I'm trying to do is I'm working on a little bit of an angle, and I started painting this way for videos because I was getting so much glare on my work, and it was frustrating when I was filming because then you couldn't see everything because you're just seeing the glare. And then I actually ended up really liking it. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that Prussian blue on its own. Generally, you're a little bit darker at the top of the sky. I hope the sound of my space heater isn't too annoying. It's just so much more effective than my oil-filled radiator that I had been using. So I'm using that one for now. I'm just going to wisp the sky out a little bit. Now these colors in this set are very staining. There is a color that's got some ultramarine, and I actually think the notations are wrong on this set. I will grab a little bit of that color so I can have one that will lift up a little bit. So I'm trying to kind of leave some of my cloud area just unpainted, but I might have gone a little too watery for that technique. But I do like this set in wet on wet scenarios. It seems to work really well. I also want to get a little bit of magenta in there. We're going to do a little bit of a tropical scene today. And I am just going to wet my brush, just kind of pull some of this over here. Now I'm going to have to lift out some clouds, but I think because everything is so wet and this paper is fairly well sized, I'll be able to do that. I won't be able to lift as much from the more phthalo blue areas, but I should be able to get some over here. And we also have the sun, kind of like a really bright burst of sun in the sky, so I do want to try to get that. Just kind of get some, fold up my paper towels to some smaller clouds down near the horizon. Fold it and turn it so you don't end up with like all uniform the same shape clouds. And the more firmly you push, the more sky you'll get. And try to make your clouds larger, close to the top of your paper, because that will just give you some scale. And if you have those smaller clouds down closer to the horizon, it'll look better. Try not to jam your fingernail into the paper too, which I almost did. You want to be careful with that because you don't want to leave those marks. Okay, let's see, I think that's pretty good. Now I am going to I'm going to go switch brushes. This brush right here came in a paint kit that I didn't like the paint, but I like that brush pretty well. That's really absorbent, and I need something that's not quite as absorbent because I'm going to, I want to get the sky, the water in here, but I don't want it to bleed up into the sky. I want to be able to control it. So what I'm going to do is mix my own color. I'm going to go with, actually I'm going to go with this green that comes pre-mixed, but I'm going to add it into some of the blue I already used. So I try to do that because once you integrate your colors with one another, it just looks a lot better rather than just using it straight from the pan. Of course, there's 24 colors here, so you could definitely use stuff straight from the pan, but I just think it looks a little bit better when you do this. Now, when I measured, I made my marks for my measuring on the tape, and then I just drew a line. So if you don't need a line to go by, then you could just make a nice dark mark on the tape and go from that. I think that would be lovely. The photo I'm using is by Fabian Victor from Pexels.com. If I forget to link it up, you'll be able to find it. Now, I'm just kind of putting this in. I'm very gingerly here. I'm leaving some white spaces just to show like the froth in the water. Now I want to integrate a little bit of yellow in there, but I know I'm going to be using a sandy color here, so I'm going to use this color that's called Fall Harvest. It looks kind of like a yellow ochre or a Naples yellow. It's a it's a color that's got white in it, but the one thing I find about these colors, that even the ones that have white added, they're not very opaque. They're still quite transparent, but just kind of keep an eye on that. Most of these colors have mixes. I'll do a full review on this. The way my schedule of uploading goes, sometimes I have the review out before the tutorial. It just depends on how it fits best when I'm putting my my videos together. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue here, because you'll have a little bit of reflection happening here and there. This is a fun technique. I hope you give it a try. So sometimes I have the review posted before my videos, but I end up filming so many things in a short period of time, and then I try to, you know, parse them out a little bit when they make sense. Okay, and now I'm gonna grab a little bit of this, I call it burnt sienna, but they call it, let's see, Delectable Delights. Now I have my little swatch that goes with my pans there, which will always be with my palette, but I also swatch it for my swatch book, and I keep the little wrappers there. When I do my review, I refer to that because it's got pigment information and whatnot. So I have that in front of me right now so I can tell you what I've got. Now I want to get the shoreline in here, and I am just going to go with this mix. I've got some of that yellow ochre color and the burnt sienna light color, and I'm just gonna kind of draw the shoreline where I would have the sand. Now I think I will switch to a more juicy brush, mix up a little bit more of that. I'm just kind of going, I can fill in here because anything I'm going to add on top will be darker, so I don't have to worry about filling in too much. I know we'll be able to cover it up. And I want to do that fairly quickly, so that the color that I had grabbed to trace the outline of the foam, I just want to make sure that I'm not going to have any harsh lines. Now we do want to have some more shadows in there, so I'm going to take some burnt sienna, grab a little bit of that Prussian blue, which is called Starry Night, and add a little bit of that in here as well. Just watch out for puddles. On this smooth paper, you do have a little bit more tendency to get some blooming. And let's see, I want a little bit of breaks in the foam so you can kind of see the sand coming through. I'm just kind of slip-slopping, tip-tapping my brush around just to try to get a little bit of that texture in there. This is going to be a real quick painting. Just something fun. I found these paints very easy to handle, which would be nice, I think, for a newcomer to painting. Not a lot of granulation, which they state on the package. It's something they did purposefully. I don't know why. I think because they're a stamp company, they probably are trying to avoid the granulation. So if you are going over a stamped image, you're not going to have dark lines. I assume that's probably why they did that. I want to put some rocks in, and we're also going to have a little bit of a hill with some palm trees, but I think I need to dry this first. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with some blooming and some fuzzy edges. So what I'm going to do, actually, I just saw I had a real harsh edge there. I just want to go soften some of that out a little bit. Okay, and it only takes like a second or two with your heat tool to dry it. You could use a hair dryer. The reason I have this, this is actually a heat tool, not a hair dryer. The reason I have this is because I also use it for rubber stamping and card making, so it doesn't make sense for me to have two tools when this will do both. And a hair dryer won't work with my heat embossing if I was making cards, so that's why I have this. If you don't do stamping or heat embossing, you don't need a heat tool. Cheap hair dryer will work just fine. Alright, I think that's all we need there. Okay, so I think what I want to do is actually go with a flat brush. And I want to get some rocks in. I'm going to go with the, and I'm not using a lot of water. As I progress, I'm using less water with my paint. Just enough basically to liquefy it. And I'm going to add some of that Starry Night, which is like Prussian blue. Look how strong that color is. I need to add more brown. And we're going to make our rocks with this. And this looks like it's probably a Hawaiian scene. It looks like lava rock, a black rock. This is going to have a little bit of a green undertone because the burnt sienna has kind of a yellow undertone, and that Prussian blue has a green undertone, so it does have a little bit of a green feel, but so does other things in this picture, so I'm fine with that. I find, like, rocks, I love painting rocks so much. I find the thing with rocks is the less perfect you make them, the better they look. So I see people really fret about their rocks. And most of the time, if you just left the rock alone, you just painted it and let it be, it's going to look fantastic. It's when you start fussing with it that it starts to, you know, look awkward. If you don't fuss with it, if you just paint it and leave it, you're going to be fine. Now, a tip when you're doing the rocks is that if you flatten out the bottom, that usually looks good because it's usually either set in water or it's set in sand. So that's going to look a lot more natural than if you have it rounded on the bottom. You want to have it flat on the bottom. And leave some things for the imagination. So, like, you don't need to have everything painted in. You can leave some edges undone, just plain, just nothing. And that will make it look more realistic. I think we like to have everything neat and tidy, and we like to paint like we see every detail, but in reality, if you're at the beach, you know, you're not looking, you can't see every detail on every rock at once. You might be looking at one rock really detailed, and that's fine, but you're not seeing all the rocks around it really detailed because you wouldn't be able to. It's not how our eyes work. A little cluster of rocks there. Happy little rocks, right? Okay, now we've got a kind of a little hill there. That's okay if it's got a green undertone because we're gonna have some little bit of green on there for grasses. We got sun behind us, so we're not gonna see every little detail, so that's actually a good thing. We'll go up here, we'll just kind of paint that. There was a little, like, part of a hut that you can see, but I'm not really that interested in having that there. Silhouette is fine. And then what I'm going to do is use a chisel edge of the brush and put on some palm tree trunks. Alright, now what we need to do is grab a liner brush. A liner brush is simply a round brush that has long bristles. Let's see, this is technically a liner brush. It's not a super duper long bristled liner brush. I also have, should have my Creative Mark liner brush because that's one of my favorite brushes. And I don't think I tied it up my table very well. I think it's rolled under my, it's rolled under the plate, under my, yeah, we're going to use this. I think it's rolled under my little painting platform here. That's okay. We'll use this. It's going to be fine. We're going to take that green that we used. We're gonna recycle. Recycling is good, right? It's really good when we do it to our colors. We're gonna take the green that we used in the water. We're gonna take that Prussian blue that we used, or Starry Night. We're gonna take some of that burnt sienna, and we're gonna take some of that Fall Harvest, or I would call it yellow ochre, even though it doesn't use a customary yellow ochre pigment. All right, so we've got kind of like a dull teal here. And we are going to just do see some far away palm trees. Now these are so far away back here that we're not seeing the individual little grasses. We're just seeing the branches of our palm trees. Okay, that's really important to think. Like, how much detail would I be able to see on this tree? It's that far away. Would I be able to see individual grasses? Would I just see branches? Would I just see blobs kind of in the general shape of a palm tree? What would I see here? Your brain will fill in the rest. When somebody's looking at this, they will see, they will say, oh yeah, palm trees, absolutely. We could put some little shrubs, bushes there. Okay, so now here, I'm going to actually bring a branch kind of falling off the edge of the paper, off the top of the paper, because that would be closer. We'd see more of that. This one's still the small one. I want a little bit of a greener green for my closer section, so I'm going to do the yellow ochre. And I'm going to do that bright green from the pan that we used in the water. Remember, recycling, everything is recycled right here. I'm going to add some of that in there with that brighter green. So we have a little bit of those larger fronds coming forward. Can go back in here, get that center part of the tree where it's a little bit fuller. I can get that a little bit darker. The center part of the branch rather. And I can just kind of fill in with some nondescript little marks back here as well. A couple more trunks back there. And I also need to have some shadow on the sand. So I'm just going to stick with this brush for right now. I'm going to take some yellow ochre. I'm just going with my customary colors because this palette's pretty new. I can't imagine many of you have it yet. I'm adding a little bit of that grayish, gunky color that I made. And I'm adding that into my sand color, adding a little bit of water. I want to make sure that I have it real mixed up and it's in all saturated in the bristles here. I kind of want to, I just tested it off camera on a scrap. And now I'm going to add some of these darker colors here and there. Going to add them around the rocks, going to add them around the foam. I know the sun's back there. Of course, you can't really see that too much on my painting, but I'm going to add shadow kind of coming from this area here. Add it coming from this rock here. These nice long shadows make you feel like it's late afternoon. It's that wind picks up late afternoon. We're getting those waves. Let's do some more brighter colors here. Let's get some of that green, a little bit of that Prussian blue. Nice and transparent. I do like how transparent these are. They're very easy to work with. Now I'm going to go in and build some of my colors up in the water, just kind of streaking them back and forth. You want these wiggly horizontal shapes because that's going to help you get that feeling of water. And boy, this is a nice painting to do. Are you stuck at home in the winter? Are you stuck at home? Are you, when I'm painting this, it's kind of the first week of, well, it's our first week of quarantine in Maine. Schools have been, today's the first day that schools have been shut down. So it's very strange times. I know a lot of people in this neck of the wood have planned vacations at this time of year because we still have quite a bit of winter ahead of us up here. So there's a lot of people that have had to change their plans. And there's also a lot of people that don't make plans because you never know when you're going to get a snowstorm and you don't want to get trapped, you don't want to get stuck somewhere. So now everyone's stuck at home. But we can travel to Hawaii in our minds. We can travel to the tropics, to the Bahamas. We can go theater of the mind, as I used to say in radio school. And I think I do also want a little bit of more dark on my rocks. I'm going to try just my dark colors, see what I get with just my dark colors. I did use a little bit of magenta, so you know what? I think I might just grab a little bit of that. That'll make me a real nice dark. Actually, that green and that red, that'll make me a super nice dark. Let's do that. Your magenta and your phthalo green make a really good dark. And since I did use a little bit of that magenta up there, I know it's going to work, so I can go in and put some of these dark accents here. Don't be afraid. Just a piece of paper. Nobody has to see it. If you don't like it, I'll put a little bit kind of like shadows there. Maybe shadow some of those trunks. Drag some of that into the rocks. And heck, now that I've done that, I say, my sand could be darker. Honestly. So why don't we mix up a darker shadow for that? Now you're probably appalled at how I just dirtied those pans up, but don't you worry, I can just sweep them clean. Sweep them clean. No biggie. Life's too short to worry about that these days. It's such an easy fix. I like to just keep picking up basically dirt from my palette because that's what's going to mix the best. A little bit more magenta. Holy crap. Whoops, sorry about that. Color's bold. That's still G-rated, right? I think so. I'm so uncouth. See, I've been isolated for one day. It's day one and I'm already talking like a G-rated sailor. Over here. I'm also going to do a little bit of spattering. I might be able to hack it with this brush here. Yeah, it will work. Toothbrush is better though. In fact, I don't think that's that healthy to do with your good brushes, unless it's like a hog brush or faux hog. So I'm just going to grab my toothbrush here. Get some texture on that sand. Now, if you wanted to, you could do this with white paint and you could do some seafoam. That would be pretty. It might be tough on a small picture like this to do that, but it's certainly a possibility. I think I'm going to leave this the way it is. I think it looks kind of pretty. I'm going to give it a quick zap before I try to peel the tape off. That's always our favorite part, isn't it? So, and here's a tip. I buy tape at the Dollar Tree. I find that the masking tape at the Dollar Tree is a little bit less sticky than your regular, like kind of name brand masking tape. And that's perfect for using in your sketchbook. But if you've got tape that doesn't want to release, a quick fix, and this is also how you get stickers off of presents and things like that, like sticky labels when you're, you know, you take Christmas time, you take labels off presents, you know. This will also take stickers off things, a heat tool. A hairdryer should work just as well. But when I'm drying my paper, I just go over the edges, go over the tape, and that just makes the adhesive a little bit more likely to release. And so now we can remove our tape. Now, what you could do is actually save this, try to flatten it back out, and if you like to paint the same size in the same sketchbook, you could probably just maybe even put like a piece of wax paper on the back, or you might be able to just stick this to the lid of your sketchbook, because it usually has kind of like a nice coated lid. But you could use this a few times before you need to toss it out. So if you do need to conserve, that is a great way to do it. I think this is kind of cute. I mean, it was so easy and definitely suitable for a beginner or a child. If you're home with your kids, teach them how to paint. That is a lifelong gift, and it will certainly calm them down if they're feeling a little stressed out during these uncertain times. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, happy crafting.